Ladies and gentlemen, now it's time for a very interesting panel discussion. We are all aware that senior has different value and meaning from company to company. Let's try to lay some foundation, ideas, concepts, terms, and expectations that are generally expected. Idea behind this panel is to have a wholehearted discussion and ask from panelists to share their lessons, stories, experiences, and opinions. Panel will be moderated by Miro Svrtan, and panelists are Juliette, Reinders, Folmer, Rafael Dohms, and Milan Popovic. Okay, this is going to be kind of a Slido live, so as quick as you can ask the questions, Miro will check on the tablet, so you're going to have live conversation during this panel, and the name of the panel is Road to Seniority. Okay, the next following hour is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. So, should we maybe first introduce ourselves a bit more? So, I'm going to be the moderator tonight, or the afternoon, sorry, it's a bit darkish. I think I am a senior developer. I've been in the industry for some 20 years, so I at least hope I am a senior. They might disprove it. I'm not saying they won't. And that's more or less it. Juliette?
My name is Juliette Folmer, and I'm still wondering what a senior is, and I'm hoping to learn it today. I may be one, I may not be. We'll find out.
All right, I'm Rafael Dohms, and well, I'm definitely a senior in age at this point, but I'm not sure if I'm still a senior in development.
I'll meet you there.
Hi, I'm Milan Popovic. I hope that I'm not senior by the age. At least I hope, yeah. But yes, maybe I'm senior developer. Let me see what is the senior developer.
Okay, so can we start with you? So I often hear and see people who are maybe in the industry for only a few years who get the senior title. Does the senior title come with years? What's your opinion on, like, I've been in the industry for X amount of years, I am a senior. Is there any correlation between those two?
It depends. Yes, but yes, yes. So let's say it like this. Let's say it like this. For example, let's say from this angle, if you and me, if we both of us we have 5 years of experience, let's say, but I worked for 8 hours and you worked for 12 hours, are we equal? We are working both 8 hours, and if I'm reading, if I'm researching, if I'm doing all additional stuff and you are not, so we cannot measure it by time. It definitely cannot be measured like that.
Okay, Rafael, Juliette.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think time is it's a very simple dimension to measure. I mean, just because you're working for 10 years doesn't mean that in those 10 years you have upgraded your craft, right? And when we talk about senior, I see it as someone who has honed their coding art to a new level. And if you're just sitting there doing the same thing every day, are you a senior? You're not really learning anything new. So if, let's say, Rafael from 2006 was still only writing simple WordPress plugins and didn't look into the rest of the world and what was happening, would I be a senior? So I think time is inevitable, right? It takes no effort to be in the industry for time. You're just there and it goes by. And I think seniority comes with effort, with wanting and going further.
I totally agree with both previous speakers. I'd like to add to that, you have experience and talent in the mix. Some people pick things up really, really quickly, and in their field they can become a senior really quickly because they are that talented. And they build up the same experience in a year as someone else might take 8 years to get. At the same time, will they have the seniority over a team? They might have the seniority in their field, but maybe not as a team lead, because that also takes experience, as in life experience. Does that answer the question?
Okay, so we actually got a really good question on Slido. What was the most significant thing you found that contributed to becoming a senior developer?
Passion. Right? Passion is one of those things that you want to tell people, yeah, you need to have passion and it's great. And it sounds like a cop-out, right? Because it's like, oh, well, yeah, I don't have to be passionate about everything. But passion can take different formats. But essentially what it means to me is self-drive. No one can take you to seniority unless you want to get there. Unless you want to learn, you want to expand, you want to figure out what else can I do differently. It doesn't matter what mentor you get, it doesn't matter what job you get, it doesn't matter how long you spend it. If you don't want, if you're not open to feedback, to understanding, to looking further, it doesn't matter. So having that self-drive, that to me is what I found really made a difference. And then the rest is being at the right place at the right time.
It was a thing when I realized that learning, only working and learning is not enough. I think that during my road to seniority, people were the most important beside all my work and all my knowledge that I gained during my development. And the most significant thing that I did with friends that we have sitting here is founding also user group where we can discuss and where we can learn from each other. That is the most significant way in all people's career. All people should speak with other people more, should learn from each other, should group together. So we have to have user group everywhere because that's the best way to share knowledge and best way to become senior for me.
I kind of think you have to look at yourself and think, what is your own ambition? Being a senior is not for everyone. Some people are perfectly happy in the work they're doing and continuing to do so really well. So stay true to yourself, and whether that's becoming a senior or not, do what's right for you.
Actually, we have another great question on that, and do titles actually matter?
No.
Do titles actually matter? Is it important that somebody is a junior, senior, intermediate, or?
Titles are marketing. In the end, your peers will show you the respect you have as a senior because of your knowledge and not because of a title.
I agree with that aspect. I think titles are important to represent what you are, but it's not the title, right? It's the recognition, like you said. If your peers do not recognize you as such, it doesn't matter. If someone comes from above and says, well, you're now a senior, and the whole team looks like, no, that guy doesn't know, he has no idea what he's doing. Are you a senior, right? So titling per se really is not a thing, but usually with titles comes a career framework, comes a ladder. Bless you, Derek. But usually with titles come career ladders, right? And I think that's the importance behind a title is what is the career ladder that is set for you to get there? How do you get to that title? What does it mean to have that title within the company? Now, what one company might call a senior and another company might call a senior are completely different things. So the title in itself, outside of the context of the company, it's like, yeah, okay, what are you? I'm a cat herder. Okay. Right? But within that company, there's an understanding. What is a senior? What is a tech lead? Is a tech lead necessarily a senior? Can they also be an intermediate developer? So understanding what that means within the company and having the recognition of your peers is indeed more important than the title per se.
Titles are actually good, but only for LinkedIn, yeah, so you receive so many likes when you set new title, yeah, am I right? So, but in general, I don't care about titles, because titles are not solving problems, titles do nothing. beside it. So we are hired to solve someone's problem. So we should take care about it. We should not take care how they call us. So they do not care. Business owners do not care. They think that if we are calling ourselves seniors, they think that we are capable of solving their problem, nothing beside it. So if we have so many senior developers, why do we have so many software that is not working properly?
That's a good question. So what does the audience think are the titles important? Who thinks they are? Few hands. How many of you actually have a senior title in your job? Okay. Not as much as I expected. So,
Can I add something? Can I still add something? Well, titles are also something you can play with. I'm self-employed, so I don't have a title within my company per se, unless I title myself. So depending on who I talk with, I can be either the CEO, or the cleaner, or just a developer like some other developer I'm talking with. So you can play with that as well and adjust it based on what is right for the situation.
okay, but I think that titles might be important more for the communication outside of the company. Like, hey, we're looking for junior developers, intermediate developers, senior developers, because it gives us some kind of a framework what company is expecting.
But then people actually need to have a framework of what those titles mean. And what is a senior in one company might be a junior in another company. There's not one definition of those things. So what does it mean having that in an advertisement unless you actually specify what you want that to mean?
Yeah, I feel that's it. You need to follow up, right? Just putting a senior, it gives an indication. We have a general idea of where the senior title is going to land and what we expect. But it's really important to expand that within the job announcement or even during the interview. What is it that is a senior in this company? What does that mean? Does it mean you expect me to lead a team? Does it mean you expect me to be a really strong individual contributor? What is it, right? Is it a senior in just PHP, or is it a senior in just design overall? So there's many different aspects of it that the word can't cover, right?
So when you mentioned, you said you want junior developer, you're mid or senior. So can you describe what you want actually? What do you want from someone you want to hire? You can put description. I want this and that from the person I want to hire. That's the point, not the point junior, senior, etc. Problem to solve. What problem he or she should solve?
Okay, that's a really interesting point. So what would be the most essential difference between an intermediate and a senior?
Oh boy. I was just going on a rant about this back there. See, that's the thing. When we look at seniors, we tend to think technical leadership, right? Someone who knows more than I do in how they code or whatever. And I think seniority is about much more than your ability to produce code. It's about responsibility. It's about how you deal with the people in your team. It's about how you use the responsibility that falls upon you. Because I think one of the biggest things that come with being labeled as a senior or intermediate is how people interpret what you do. If you are in your company a junior and you do something, people will probably not follow your lead. But if you see someone labeled as a senior do that, you will have a tendency of following that. So even without knowing, even without being the lead, even without being the boss of anyone, simply by having a little bit of that, having that label attached to you means that everything you do will inspire people to follow in suit. And that is a lot of responsibility. Once you take on a team, all of your attitudes, the way you react to problems, the way you react to solutions, all of those things are being mirrored by your peers, people around you. So being a senior is not how good you write code, is how you contribute to the company in general.
Well, you said almost everything I want to say, so nothing for this one. So
Okay, but
yeah,
sorry.
The one thing I would like to add is a large difference is as a senior and as a junior or intermediate is that you can see things in the wider context of not just your own project, but of the company or of the wider context of your whole organization or the open source projects organization which you work in. And being able to prioritize things based on the wider context instead of just on your own part of it.
I just want to add this. It's about the level of independence, someone who can independently finish the task. Exactly. So, for example, how much time do someone who is senior should invest in that person to finish what he should finish or she?
But that would maybe mean that also somebody who is good at talking can, even in their first year, finish a project because they know how to communicate, while somebody that has a lot of experience and is closed off, as a lot of developers are, might not never reach it.
Yeah, I fully agree. One of the biggest issues you find, especially with career frameworks, is they tend to follow either one of those paths. You're either the strong vocal type who everyone has heard and is doing and is active and it's an outgoing and an extrovert, and that's a very easy career path because it's very easy for you to communicate and be present and all that. But how do you handle the introvert developer who's not going to stand up in a meeting but who can contribute? And I think that's the important part is what is usually called as the individual contributor, is someone who's not going to influence the entire team, is not going to influence the company and be the vocal one, but they can also contribute a lot to that individual day-to-day in their own style. So how do you cater for that? And yesterday I was actually having a talk with Pauline, and it's a very interesting models out there to work with this within that career framework. So one of the models that I heard about is called the snowflake model, where instead of catering for one path, which leads to, well, if you're working with the team and then you're working with the company, if you're a leader in the industry, which is the usual path for career frameworks, you analyze those individual contributors a lot more. Do you deliver on time? Can you take projects to completion? Do you find a way to communicate? And if you analyze those individual pieces, you might be able to find that diamond in the rough who actually has the experience to be recognized as a senior without having to fit in that model of the one who speaks the loudest.
I think we need to be careful also to not hold to that one path people have in mind. There are lots of different careers paths in IT, and you can become a senior in different ways. Becoming a team lead, it does not necessarily have to be everyone's ambition. And let's be fair, to be a team lead, you need different skills, different talents, and different communicative skills than for being a developer. That doesn't make you less or more, it doesn't make you better or worse, it just makes you a different person. And communication is a skill you can learn if you want to.
So we have another question that's really on the subject, like, is depth of experience more important than the width of it? So should we go deep or should we go wide to become seniors?
Exactly. So the answer is yes, we should go deep and we should go wide. We should go deep as deep as we can.
Both.
Yes, but there's no just simple answer. So you have to go, when you say deep, what we mean when we say deep? And when we say wide, what do you mean when you say wide? exactly. To be clear, what we that we think the same.
Okay,
Deep in
so
what? Wide in what?
So I think what you're trying to say is, so def is the specialization where you become the best PHP developer in the world, and with is the one where you try to also be the JavaScript, the architect, and that kind of stuff.
So it's actually a question, should we be specialized or should we be polyglots? Oh, what a question. That's a good question. We already talked about it. Yeah. So we already had discussion about this. I prefer specialization over, but yes, we have to have understanding about everything. So that's the reason why we should go deep and wide at the same time. So we are specialized, for example, in PHP, but we should have some, let's say not basic knowledge. We should know how everything around PHP, so that's something that lives with PHP and something that is usually in the technology stack goes along with PHP and related technologies. So we should be specialized with broad knowledge of all the other stuff.
I don't necessarily completely agree. I think either is important, but do what's right for you. You can become a subject matter expert, and it doesn't even have to be polyglot. You can be a subject matter expert in a small part of PHP, but be the absolute utmost expert in that. And that can make you a senior. At the same time, you can become a full stack developer, and because of your broadness of knowledge, be a senior. Either is, do what's right for you. This is not something you have to do both, or one is more important than the other. Both can work just as long as it's right for you.
Okay, but when we're talking about width and depth, it might be also the domain or the type of business that we're in.
Yeah.
Like, what would your suggestions be? Like, if I like doing e-commerce or something, should I stick to it and become the best, or should I switch domains and try to?
Again, that depends on what kind of person you are. If you want to, if you really like e-commerce and you really want to become the expert, and the company you're at does not cater for that and wants you to go wide, then maybe you're not at the right company.
Okay, that's valid.
Yeah, I think it really depends on what you see for yourself. Because if you look at different paths you can take within a team, if you want to become the absolute expert in PHP, then that's def. You can become the senior individual contributors. Like this person will never be a manager, but they will be the best developer in the team. They're going to solve all of these crazy problems that maybe no one else can solve. But maybe you have a vocation for communication and people skills, and you follow more of a path towards team leadership or management. And in that case, as an architect or as a team lead, having a bit more width to your knowledge helps you deal with the problems that are tossed at you, right? So being able to choose between how two teams are going to communicate and so forth. If you're a PHP expert and the other guy the other person in your team is now a JavaScript developer, how are you going to evaluate that? How are you going to keep the communication between those two parts going? So in that case, having the width is going to help you. So it really matters what path you want to follow. And is that a path you can follow at your company? Is that a path you need to follow somewhere else? And most of the times we don't really know what that path is up front. It takes a while, right? It takes some time for you to figure out where you want to go.
It's also a matter of time, as you said. It depends actually which path you want to choose. But all of us, we know many magnificent, very good engineers. So, for example, I was also wondering in modern day when we have so many technologies, new technology every day, yes, almost, and we have to grasp all that knowledge. How we can achieve that, how we can do that, how we can call us, I don't know, that we have some broad knowledge about everything. So all of us, we know how much time we invest every day in learning new stuff in PHP. Being just a backend developer requires such huge amount of time. What about everything else? I'm really wondering how some people can learn everything. I am really jealous about it. And maybe I'm not yet senior enough to be on that level, yes, but I'm suffering from that lack of time.
And that's a really good point. So how much time did you spend outside of the working hours on yourself?
Sorry?
How much you did spend? How much do you spend now?
No, so
not like
during my career, this time changed, yeah, because of all the obligation I have during my age. I have family and everything else. So when I started after my college and when I get regular job, so I think that I spend whole my day only programming and doing nothing beside it. Okay, yes, I had social life. So, but I literally spend the whole day. Maybe every free moment I had, I spend reading something, investigating, researching, even not sleeping for a few hours only. I was really impressed with all the whole world that opened in front of my eyes. And during the time, I'm not my responsibility changed, because when you become, as you say, on our road seniority, we got more responsibilities. So we do not have, for example, at our job, we do not learn on the same pace anymore during age also, and we have different responsibilities that do not allow us to invest that time. So we invest time to solve some business problem and to make sure that everything is working, rather than to do research on some cool new framework, new technology or something like that.
So let me preface this with, you absolutely do not need to invest personal time to get to a senior place. Absolutely, you do not have to. That's clear. Does it help? Of course it does. Everyone has a different path to get there. My path involved, well, at some point I figured out I do like to be on stage. I do like to share knowledge. I do like to mentor people. And that showed me, well, I can invest time into that. I can invest time into building communities. And obviously that brings a benefit, right? We're not just doing this because it's nice. That nice is also the benefit we're doing it for. It makes us feel good and it gives us a path. But you can also achieve that within office hours and being a very good employee doing those office hours. That's totally doable. But you're investing time either way. Either you're investing time, company time, or you're investing your own time. Because you can be at the day job for 8 hours and not achieve anything, but you can also be at the office for 8 hours and apply yourself. And I think we go back to the beginning. So yeah, you do need to invest a lot of time. It doesn't need to be your personal time, but you need to keep looking ahead. Where are you going? Is this going to help you achieve? What else can you do? Who can you learn from? Do I have opportunities? Do I have opportunities to learn from other people? If you don't keep looking at yourself and figuring out what is my next step, no one is going to take that next step for you. So yes, invest time, because that's what you can do.
I think this might be the cultural thing. I mean, on the other hand, we are on a conference and it's a Saturday.
Yes. You should get a day off in compensation for that. And
so is anybody getting a vacation day for today instead of today? 1.
2.
Yeah, but it's still your personal time you're spending here. That's really nice to hear. Why I asked, Into tech, there's a lot of people coming in from different industries that have not maybe being privileged enough to have that extra time to learn. And I noticed in other cultures, not the ones in the Balkans, that they, as companies, invest in people. And that's why I wanted to have differences of opinion, because I come from Zagreb, but I doubt that the culture here in Belgrade and Serbia is much different, where companies do not think of education as much as they should. And how do you battle those problems if, like, hey, maybe I have a family, maybe I have children, I can't work more than 8 hours, I have different responsibilities, I'm not privileged enough to actually learn afterwards.
Okay, so how many people here are managers in their company or have a good position to influence management? A few. Okay, listen up. Management should learn to understand that if you invest in people, people will be loyal to you. And if you invest in people and those people grow and become more experienced and better people and serve your company better, they will stay loyal with you. If you don't invest in people, they will leave and you have to train someone else again. That's a waste of money. Invest in people.
Well, and as they say, right, but what if I invest in people and they leave? Well, what if you don't and they stay?
Yes.
Right? Is that who you want to work with? So the way I found to address this is, well, I managed to get myself into the places where I could make that option for the team. One of the things that I love doing is coming into a company that does not have a learning culture, and you know, the first thing I do is challenge that. Why? Why do we don't have? Is it expensive? It's not. It's cheap. Do you know how cheap it is to get during lunch hour, put everyone in a room, give them a nice catered lunch, you know, like we had here, and put up a talk and watch it. And at the end of the talk, have a discussion. That doesn't take anything. It's a day-to-day thing. Or maybe take 2 hours from the end of the afternoon. So there is so much that we can do to invest in education that doesn't involve money. And I understand if the company says, look, we don't have money. That's true most of the time. Maybe they don't have money. Maybe they do and don't want to use it. But we can do so much that doesn't involve that. It's just time. We have plenty of time. Are you willing to invest that time? So what we used to do, for example, is we had 3-week sprints. And every time a sprint finished, we had a whole day planned only for education before we start going into the next sprint. And that's a day where we sit down, we watch a talk, one of us presents. Also, you know, that culture of being able to present within the company to 5-6 people, that's the start there. It allows you to become better at communicating, it allows you to express ideas, it allows you to connect better with your peers. And it doesn't cost you anything, it will cost you hours of time.
I'm not trying to heckle you, but how successful were you in Brazil with that?
Mixed results. Mixed results. I think there's 2 parts of it. My career back in Brazil was also early on. I didn't know all that I know today and had seen all of these things. But I did work for a couple of companies that did have that same mentality, that were willing to send you to conferences. Definitely more of an uphill battle, definitely. But it is possible, right? It is possible. It's not a one-person thing. It is a mass movement. The more people push for it and the more we share experiences from places where it didn't happen, the more we can help convince the next company. And every single one of you that is here today has that influence, right? By being a person who is involved, who is doing differently, it takes a lot of weight. Next time you go to an interview, you know, you can ask, do you have a learning budget? Do you have investment? And the company is probably, you know, they might say no. And that's a learning moment. That's a moment where you can say, why not? How do you do these things? How do you guarantee the future of your team? Because the people who are there today they're not the future of your team. You need to keep investing in these people and keep bringing new faces and keep growing the people you have. Otherwise, what is the future of your team? The same people 10 years later? Is that going to be good enough? Are they going to grow, or are they going to keep repeating the same thing they're doing? So, if people are not in a growth path, they're stagnated. And being stagnated is not good for a company, neither is it good for a developer.
I just want to add two things here. So as you said, there is always cost of leaving a company. So for example, if I leave a company, then my company should hire an HR agency or hire some HR, and they will spend the money to hire someone like me. For most companies, for most of seniors, yeah. So it's better for them to invest that money in personal development of the developers. And also, there is also solutions for the case when they say there is no budget for education, and then it's not going to be, then you charge more, because you should pay your education, so it's a matter of price.
So how many of you have education budget? So the ones that don't have, talk to those that do have.
Yes, please.
So keep the hands up. I'm sure that all of those companies look for developers, right? I mean, I'm going to ask the stupid question, whose company is not looking for a developer? And no hands. So.
Well, actually, I want to add to that, because it's not just education in terms of technical terms, right? There's so much we can teach people. I think one of the main things we need to solve right now is inclusivity. And that's also a skill. That's also something that's going to take you further in life. Being able to be someone who can accommodate for all people from all different walks of life, who doesn't just, whitewash everything. That will get you further. That will give you new possibilities to connect. It'll give you new possibilities to work, new possibilities to connect to different companies. So learning is just not just technical. It is everything. Is how to communicate, how to be a speaker, how to be inclusive, how to be a better person. That's also part of the work of a company.
I can only agree.
And even for us developers, we should get used to go to at least 2 or 3 conferences during the year. So beside the domestic conference, I think that we all have almost in all countries some kind of domestic technical conference. We should go to the other country, meet other people, speak with that people, learn from other people. So I think that most things I learned speaking with other people during the conference. So that means a lot for that. That was going to conference was also significant part of my road to seniority.
And I'm just going to have to mention Michelangelo van Dam here now. Basically, what he says: if there's no local meetup group, congratulations, you're it. You're the user group leader. Start a meetup group. Get to know your peers. If there's no speakers available, start speaking yourself. Ask people in your meetup group to start speaking. We each have a story to tell. We each have something to teach other people. So learn from each other.
And it's even more. We keep talking, sending people to conferences, and I mean, for everyone who's here, that's fine, right? But I've also met people who would absolutely freak out to be in a conference like this. And it's not just conferences, it's communicating, right? At Amsterdam PHP, not everyone's comfortable speaking. We organize game nights. 4 people sitting at a table playing a game. It's also a way to connect that is a lot more, it helps people who can't deal with bigger crowds and these kind of things. So any opportunity to, go to a bar and have a beer with different developers and just have a chat. Like that simple act can either introduce you to someone who will help you in the future, or maybe you will learn that one thing that was missing from the current experience you're having. So there's so many ways of connecting. Just try one. Find whatever works for you.
So I think that maybe we also, when we are talking about diversity and things like that, we also have to look into what options developers have to grow. Because, so I know that you work for a product company. You're working as well as me. You're mostly working on a project, on different projects. But how many of you here work in an agency that has clients and that bills per hour and that? Okay, so when I spoke to a friend last year, 2 years ago, sorry, we went for full day of education, and his comment was, okay, so what's happening with your company? Nothing. He says, yeah, in my company, it means no money for that Friday because we charge by the hour. We are an agency and we cannot always afford it that way. So a lot of people who come from companies that work on billable, it's not always that easy to get education in. So do you have any suggestions?
It's interesting, right? Because we tend to think of long-term and short-term. Sure, in the long term, that day was a loss. In the long term, that day might have been the day you learned something that will make you deliver something that took 2 hours in 1 hour, and you have gained. So it's all about, do you think in the short term or the long term?
Yeah, I work on billable hours as well, but I've always chosen freedom over money. At the end of the day, the freedom to learn, the freedom to choose what I want to spend my time on is far more valuable to me as a person than money. So if I choose to be here and have Friday travel day, Monday travel day, non-billable hours, I choose that because I find this important. And if I don't choose this, I will be unhappy. If I'm unhappy, I would leave a company. So from a company perspective, it's do the math. If you don't give your developers those kind of freedoms to get education, to get the extra time to learn, then at some point they'll leave and that will be a bigger loss.
It's about trust between developer and the company. So when we are working for someone, or we are working for some agency, for some company, it's completely, everything I work because it's going to be it's going to be good for my company. So even if I choose to work, not to work that day, if I choose to learn something, it's because it's going to gain value for my company. And I think that companies should trust more their developers when they learn.
One more addition. If you let your developers learn, you can charge higher hourly rates. So if you're an agency and you work on billable hours, do you want lower rates or higher rates?
Okay, that's really interesting. So, okay, we have a question from the audience. In a stressful environment, overwhelmed with business-imposed deadlines, how to support less experienced colleagues and still make sure we make the deadlines?
Culture. Absolutely. The only way that you can, and I speak from experience, I've been in companies where we have had problems with deadlines, where we have had pressure, and unless you build a culture where the business understands why developers push back on deadlines. Because, why do we push back on deadlines? Is it because we don't like deadlines? No, I don't mind having a deadline as long as it's a deadline that makes sense with the work you're doing. Also a deadline that can understand when things go wrong. And by the only way you can overcome that is creating a culture, is bringing the product, the business side of the company closer to the developer department so there's an understanding. If today I run into a bug in PHP, it doesn't matter. What am I going to do? Am I going to ignore it? I'm going to have to find a path around it. And that will change. It doesn't matter what deadline you gave me, what the clients are saying, look, we just ran into something that we're not going to be able to solve right now. We're going to have to rely on the community to help us fix the bug. We're going to have to find another way around it. And having a company that is able to go and say, okay, well, if that's the problem, how else can we can sort this? Because as they say in the triangle, you can pick two sides, right? If you need more time, what are you going to do? You need to reduce the scope. You're not going to reduce the quality, right? Okay, just checking. But if all of a sudden you have a time pressure and you need to deliver by that date, then you have to reduce the scope. It's balancing those different aspects and trying to create that culture with product. Not by polarizing and saying, well, they're asking for this, we don't want to do it. It's us. We need to build this, and for that we need both the input from the business and from development. And building that culture is a challenge. It's not easy, but it's doable. I've seen it be done, and you need to find what is the common thing that you share. And usually that is, I want this company to go forward, and I want to be healthy while that company goes forward. And start from there and start creating that alignment. And if you can't do it, if the company continues pushing and saying, no, it's fine, the last amount of developers we had, they were fine with doing this, then you're like, well, good, bye-bye, there's plenty of companies out there.
You just mentioned never to compromise on quality. Sometimes it is actually a valid way to do it. If you have a deadline, and it's a hard deadline, and compromising on quality might sometimes be the right choice, but only if for the next sprint, the task is to then pay back that technical debt which you created. Don't ever let that run up in the long run, but for a little, if it's a known choice, if it's a choice you actually consciously make and you take it into account and you put it in the planning for your next sprint, it can be acceptable.
Okay, but do you feel that the junior and intermediate developers can influence the culture?
Yes, they can. Obviously, it's going to be to a lesser extent, but that's exactly where, are we talking about seniors? That's exactly where your role comes in. You have the experience, you have the knowledge, maybe you have the reach within the company. You have the power to do good. So shield those developers, teach them what to do. I fully agree with what you said. I consider that kind of a change in scope, because you're not sacrificing the quality in the long run. But yeah, and it is a developer who just came into the market does not understand how to communicate that, or maybe hasn't had the experience or doesn't have the arguments. And that is very much where you need seniors to drive and help that culture be put in place. And seniors, intermediates, it doesn't matter. If you have the ability to communicate, to express yourself, to communicate to business, to show different sides of it, and to have an argument, then you have a way to add it. Whether you're a junior or not, you might have information that can be added to that. So definitely it's a lot easier for a senior, but anyone can add to that. We all come to conferences and we hear things, and maybe we don't understand them fully, but we know, hey, this is a thread that I can follow. I heard Juliette say something on stage about this. I'm going to go and study it. So it is possible for everyone to do it. You just have to really go for it, right?
Could it be considered even a good training for what we expect from seniors?
Absolutely. I mean, we're supposed to be learning by watching, right? And seeing how this negotiation between different departments happens is a learning experience. And again, we fall into the various paths. Maybe you don't want to be that person, and that's fine. But and then this falls to the other side, right? Seniority is great. If you have a room full of seniors, it sounds like it's great, right? Everything is going to be delivered and we're all good. No, right? You need different types of people as well, because you've got seniors who are builders. You give them a task, they go off and they build it. You have people who are thinkers. They plan and they have a bigger overview of what that is. You have people who work best on their own, people who work best when they're pairing. Then it becomes a question of balancing the team. You need to have a stable team with different people, with diversity of thought, of everything, to be able to find that balance and contribute in general.
Can you read that question again? I want to answer the question, so exact.
In a stressful environment, overwhelmed with business-imposed deadlines, how to support less experienced colleagues and still make sure we make the deadlines?
So it was just about advising less. Okay. So I want just to say what to do in that situation. So yes, as senior. So what is the? I'm speaking for my personal case. When I was a young developer, I was not aware that I didn't know how to behave in such situation when I was less experienced. And I didn't have more experienced colleague with me. I was, all of other people were of the same level of experience. And in situation like that, we only knew to, okay, let's work more and more and more. And there was no exit from that. So it's endless process. So we should educate people. We should speak more about situation like this to educate our younger fellow developers how that they should stop that, because they will. It's not good for their health and definitely not good for their career, because they will suffer even in personal life because of that. So I think that there are many people here who are working in such companies, so we should stop it.
Okay. So
I'm going to say something which a lot of people may not agree with, but I think it's also the job of management, as in the management of the dev task force, to shield them from the stress of the business. You have deadlines, you have your plan, but that stress which the business feels should not be laid on the developers. Don't work more, don't work until 12 o'clock at night. Work smarter and help your team as management to work smarter instead of more.
So, what would you classify as, so there's a question from the audience. Can you describe the seniorest senior developer or engineer you know? What traits can you identify there? Like, what are the traits that senior should have?
Continuous willingness to keep learning and to share the knowledge they gained.
Well, you stole what I was going to say. Yeah, but it's definitely in one way, it's the PHP community biggest trait, right? It's the paying forward, right? Your ability to receive all of this mentoring and pass it forward, but also the ability to embrace what influence you have within that team, and then looking around and saying, what can I do today that will make these people be better tomorrow? To me, that's a senior, because if a senior is not creating new seniors, you can do more. There's opportunity that you have there. Even as an individual contributor, even as someone who doesn't want to communicate, you can still do that through code reviews, you can still do that through so many different places. So every senior in my team, their responsibility is to make new seniors, to help everyone around become more.
And beside everything you said, I would also add, we should also finish what we are paid for. So we should do what seniors should do.
So, does a senior developer mean huge amounts of responsibilities?
Yes. Whether it's clear, given responsibility, whether it's perceived responsibility, yes. You might not want it, and that's fine. But like I said, people will be looking at you. You do have that responsibility, regardless of you wanting it or not. It doesn't mean that you have all of the responsibility within the company. It doesn't mean that they have to put that pressure on you. But you do have responsibility. It will come in different ways, and embracing that, I think, is one of the most important parts of going forward, realizing, okay, I am responsible for the people around me, whether I like it or not.
Actually, I think part of being a senior, part of the sign of that someone is ready to be a senior, is the fact that they take it on. Whether it's in a formal way or an informal way, they take responsibility for themselves and for the people they mentor or they surround themselves with.
Okay, there's a really interesting one. Can you become a senior by working on only one project since the start of your career, or would you would need several different projects to prove your value?
Of course you can become a senior when working just on one project. I mean, if all you've worked on all your life is programming C in PHP, and you're fucking good at it, sorry, excuse my French, then you're a senior. It depends. If it's a really small project and you have no peers, you're by default a senior. If it's a small project, you do have peers, and there's no growth, you're not necessarily a senior. But if it's a small project and you grow and it's been refactored and you as a person has grown, the project has grown, of course you can become a senior.
I fully agree. I mean, does anyone here, has anyone ever seen a project that stayed the same for 10 years?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
I'm scared to ask which project.
I mean, even WordPress has evolved so far, right? So it's a project that moves slowly, but it's moving, right? But that's the thing, every project does go through phases, and you're going through those phases along with it. So you can become a senior, but if you're not driving that project to evolve, if you're doing if we're back to the Industrial Revolution and you're simply doing this all day, no, you're not going to become a senior. I'm sorry, you're going to become a senior, whatever this is, but that's it. That's the entirety of your world. So pushing for that change, yes, you can. You can work on a project that goes from being a simple little thing all the way to being a big, complex, new microservice, shiny thing. Projects evolve. Products that have been out there for 50 years, they're still evolving. I mean, have you worked with Photoshop back in the 90s and Photoshop now? It's a completely different thing. It's still one project. It's one huge one. So I believe, yeah, you can learn as long as you're driving change. You're not following the status quo.
Actually, this is a good question for the audience, because who spent here, can I ask audience? Yeah, okay. Who spent more than, let's say, 5 years on one project here? Oh,
wow, okay.
So, okay. So more than, let's say, 10? So, okay, yeah. So it's possible. So definitely it's possible.
I mean, I'm sorry, I'm going to feel old now, but PHP has 25 years. Would we say Rasmus is not a senior?
So I started my career off as a solo developer, and to be honest, I think that was probably the biggest mistake I have ever done, because some of the biggest growth that I've seen as a developer was working in a team, looking at other people's code, working with others, learning from them every day. I know that maybe not all of you, maybe you're the only person in your company doing the development. And are there any other ways like open source or something to gather that experience working with others and grow yourself if you're not able to move away, or maybe just switching companies is an option for?
Let's be fair, teams can take lots of different forms. I mean, I'm a solo developer, I'm a solo agency, basically. At the same time, I work in teams every single day on GitHub. on open source projects, every single day I review other people's code, other people review my code. There's some people I will never meet in my lifetime, but we work together every day.
I mean, if we look at what GitHub did last week with GitHub Satellite, we were looking at the black hole, the picture of the black hole, right? And you had a team of 100 and something people working directly on it. And they went to look at that and said, what does it mean? Who actually worked on this? And that project used a bunch of open source Python libraries. So they summed it up, and essentially what they had was a team of 31,000 people working on that image. That is the power of open source. That is the power of community. So learning, by definition, you can't learn from yourself. What do you have to teach yourself? You will be learning from someone else. You're reading a blog post. You're learning from whoever wrote that blog post. You're going to a conference. You're learning from the speakers. You're learning from the attendees. Everything is learning. I mean, it's not just about code, right? I mean, did you spontaneously learn how to read like this? No, it all comes from learning from other people, learning from experience, learning from what's happening around you. The environment will teach you. So, expose yourself to as much of that environment as you can.
We can learn from ourselves, but only by mistakes, yeah. So, yeah, so it's always better to learn from other people because they have something, especially from the people who have something to show. And I think that all people in our industry has something to offer. We are a community of magnificent developers. I really like, in general, our community, PHP community, because all people I spoke so far are really willing to share their knowledge. It's not in every area of science. It's not situation like this. Let's praise our community. Our community is really good.
Okay, and the last question from the audience is, what's the next career step for a senior? Like, is that pension or?
Becoming a junior in something else? No. It really depends on where you want to go, right? The best developers do not make the best managers, but good developers can make excellent managers. Is that the path you want to follow? If you're a senior, to me, senior is not the last step in the ladder. I consider senior to also have its own senior level 1, level 2, level 3. Because again, you can be a senior in one scope, but can you also inspire the rest of your team? Can you also inspire, can also be a reference with open source? There's more that you can do after being a senior. You can do all those things as well when you're a junior. Don't stop yourself because of that. But no, is there a limit to what you can learn? I don't think so. You can always learn more.
If you force developer to become a manager, if you force good developer to do management, if he does not want, you will just lose good developer and get bad manager.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Milan. Thank you, Rafael. Thank you, Juliette.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
See you tomorrow.